Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Temple Within, welcome to Hearth Productions, and welcome to the Mystic's Heart, Exploring Sacred. And this morning, David Fix and I are so delighted to be together. Merry Christmas, David.
Merry Christmas, Denise, and to everyone watching.
It's so good to be here with all of you and to talk about some things that are very sacred to many of us. Including the season that we find ourselves in, the holy days that we are ensconced in. And one of the things that I've been wanting to do for quite some time is to talk to my dear friend, author, artist extraordinaire, David Fix, about a book that he wrote called Sun, Moon, Daughter. And it's a magnificent children's book, but it's not just a children's book. It's for the parents and grandparents of children. And David, would you take a moment to talk about Sun, Moon, Daughter and how it germinated and came to be?
Well, it started probably 13 years ago. It's been a while, like 2005 or 6. I've always wanted to create things. And I found myself creating videos and movies and music, which were all really time-consuming and involved a lot of people. And so there's always logistics involved, and it was difficult. And I kind of got burned out with all that. And so I looked for a project that I could do that wouldn't cost a lot of money and wouldn't involve the coordination of a lot of people. And so I thought about a children's book. And I knew people going through divorces who had children, young children, and I witnessed how difficult that can be on the parents, is estranged, and on the children. And so I was sitting at Morningstar 75, downtown Grand Rapids, and it just kind of came to me to create a myth about divorce using the sun and moon as a metaphor. And so at the time, I was seeing a lot of book titles that had like the coal miner's daughter or the butcher's daughter or something daughter. So I thought, so it kind of just rang Sun, Moon, Daughter as a title. And then I just developed the metaphor or analogy or myth about the sun and moon and how they're together and they're apart, and they both orbit around they all both circle the Earth, or the Earth circles the sun, but it appears that they both circle the Earth. And so that became my framework.
Well, it's an exquisite book. For those of you that have been here to the school, you've seen copies of the book, and maybe you've wondered, the art is exquisite on the cover, and maybe wondered, what is the book about and what does it look like on the inside? David, do you have a copy?
Here's a copy. It's a paperback book, and it took many iterations to come up with this final version, and the images are all they all follow the golden ratio. So I use that template to create the shape of the images. And then on the text page, I try to put some element from the picture on that side to kind of tie it together. And in the back of the book are the questions and statements that have to do with each book. Or each page. There's a theme for each page. It might be separation, it might be forgiveness, expression, timing. And so my friend Dr. Hamming wrote all the statements to the parents and all the questions to the kids that coordinate with each page. So it's intended to be a therapeutic tool where a social worker, a grandparent, a parent, any concerned adult can use this to guide a child through divorce or to use it as a tool to discover what's going on emotionally with the child as they experience the divorce of their parents.
Well, and that is something that a lot of people experience. I've experienced that. And helping children to understand that it's not their fault, that they're not the cause of it, and all of the emotions that go with sometimes being pulled from mother to father to grandparents to working through. So how do we go about our daily lives as children, going to school?
Right.
Interacting with other kids whose parents are not divorced. All of those things come into play when divorce happens in a family. And I love the way that you and Dr. Hamming wrapped it around a very spiritual way of talking about it that is something that really speaks to the soul and speaks to the spirit of anyone that is going through something like this, because there is a mourning process that happens when divorce happens. And how do you grieve family? How do you grieve parents not being together? How do you grieve separation? And this book does an amazing job of talking about those things in practical ways. And as you said, offering not only insight spiritually, but practical ways of talking about and moving forward in life, and really having good conversation between adults and young people about the subject of divorce. I think it's brilliant. And one of the things that I think is so beautiful are the characters in the book. David, as the author and the artist, you brought the characters to life with your artistry. What's the process like for you? Is that something you can even describe?
Sure. I think one of my strengths is just thinking creatively. Like, I don't see myself as having a natural talent as far as like perfect pitch, or I can't draw a perfect circle. And a lot of people have those other gifts. And I think I just think through the creative process. So I know what I want when I see it. And so it becomes a process of doing enough iterations to fine tune it, and maybe scrapping something, starting over, fine tune it. So it's just a lot of work, basically. I tried to imbue the book or my artwork with the divine as much as possible, which takes the form of, in art, it takes the form of the shape, and using the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio to inform how I place objects in the picture, or how many objects. For example, on the page where she's creating the constellations, there's different rocks, and I place them and create them so that there might be a cluster of 5 rocks, a cluster of 3 rocks, a grouping of 8 rocks. So that, I think, strikes humans on the subconscious level, because we are attracted to what we're familiar with. And so, we're created so that this is the size of my face, and this is the size of my brain, and this is the size of our heart. So our bodies are created holographically to be in proportion, and we're familiar with our bodies, and also nature, leaves, petals on flowers, the shapes of trees, are the colors of trees and the colors of nature are all coordinated magically, in some way, to so that when we're in nature, it feels good, and so we become accustomed to those proportions, those colors, those vibrations. And so I try to use nature as a model for the colors, the shapes, the placements of the artwork that I create. It also, another divine template that I use is Joseph Campbell's Hero of a Thousand Faces, The Hero's Journey, where each person, each day goes through an arc of a story of, got it right there.
Joseph Campbell. You and I both love this man and his work.
He's amazing.
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know a brief history of Joseph Campbell, he basically read every myth ever written in any society throughout any time. And after reading and exploring all of them, he sat back and realized that they followed the same template. And so he wrote the book, A Hero of a Thousand Faces, to describe that journey, which begins in the normal world, and there's an invitation to go into another world that the hero resists because they're intimidated or they're inhibited or some reservation. But then they meet a mentor and they cross that threshold into the other world. In Sun, Moon, Daughter, that happens when there's a storm, which is analogous to the divorce, and scatters Grace, the main character's leaves and pictures across the landscape. And so she decides to go and retrieve all of her leaves and all of her that she used to make pictures. And so that begins her journey. For that, I was inspired by the artist Andy Goldsworthy. And if you're not familiar with Andy Goldsworthy's work, it's spectacular and creative and new and employs nature. So he goes out into nature and finds like all these red leaves and then puts them together and has them float downstream like a snake. Or he uses mud to extend the roots of trees. So there's a few Andy Goldsworthy books out there, spectacular. And so I used that technique in the book for Grace. That's what she was doing. She was creating artwork like Andy Goldsworthy. And then that's what gets scattered and disrupted. Much like the routine of any child gets disruptive, as you say, when they're experiencing a divorce in their family. You know, who are my friends? Where am I going to sleep tonight? Where do I keep my clothes? Mm-hmm. What school do I go to? Mm-hmm. All these routines and structures that are commonplace in a child's life get disruptive, and how do we get through that? I used to hear my Uncle Joe, who is a priest, talk about
Father Joe Fix.
Yeah.
Any priest. It's Father Joe. Legendary.
Father Joe. Yeah, he's a legend.
Uh-huh.
And he's a master counselor. He really has made that his
teacher, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's fantastic in so many ways.
Yeah.
And I remember growing up hearing him talk about counseling families, and when the child experiences the divorce, they often think erroneously that they caused the divorce, mm-hmm. and also that they have the power, since they caused it, to end it or to bring their parents back together, which is the ache, I think, of any child through a divorce.
Absolutely.
The Disney movie, The Parent Trap, kind of speaks to that, where the whole movie is about trying to get your parents back together. Exactly. And so that becomes tragic. And so I wrote Sun, Moon, Daughter in part to inform the child that it was not your fault, and your true power is not getting your parents back together. Your true power is forming a lasting relationship with each of them. And so towards the end of the book, Grace finds that reconciliation, and at the last page, she stands like a shaman with her spine against the tree, and in one hand she holds the feather, which she uses to make clouds, and on the other hand she holds a rock, which she uses to make constellations in the sky pool at night. And so she found ways to have a relationship with each of her parents. And so that's probably the primary lesson of Sun, Moon, Daughter, although each page has lessons.
David, real quickly, where can people purchase a copy of Sun, Moon, Daughter? Where is it available?
Well, there's two different versions. Both are available at sunmoondaughter.com. And the sun is S-U-N. So it's S-U-N moondaughter.com. And if you go to that website, you'll see the paperback books available for $13 and also a link to the iBookstore where there's a digital version, which I think sells for 99 cents. So that's a great value. And
wonderful value.
Yeah, and the book really presents well on the iPad, and it offers us the opportunity to not only have audio, which is...
Grace grew up in the field by the hollow tree in the reflecting pool,
which is read by my wife Nicole and has music underneath it, but it also allows us to have the questions appear as pop-ups on each page. So you don't have to flip to the back of the book to get the questions or the statements that coordinate with each page. So I think the iBook version is a great way to go. And so those two versions are available at sunmoondaughter.com. And I think they really make great gifts, because a lot of times as parents are going through a divorce, they might not have the capacity to research and be cognizant of tools available for them. But maybe as a grandparent or a friend or aunt or uncle, if you're witnessing a child go through a divorce in their family, you might be the one that can give them this tool. And so I think they function great as gifts.
I agree with that utterly and completely. And David, I'm wondering if you could just play a little bit more from the audio and the video. It's spectacular. People can really get an idea of just how beautifully this book has been created. It's exquisite.
One day, during her nap, a loud storm startled Grace. Darkness rolled overhead, and a strong wind blew. The leaf pictures of her family were getting all mixed up. Even her reflection in the pool became upset. Grace ran around and around, trying to keep her leaves from blowing away, but the storm was too strong. Grace looked up and saw that the sun and moon were not looking over her anymore. Now they were getting in each other's way. The sky grew dark as the sun and moon fought.
That's beautiful, David. Nicole Werner is in the house, and she has a great question for you. Can you see it?
Hi, Nicole. Yeah. Well, you're in luck, because Denise and I are creating a series of books. We have one out already, which is Angels All Around Us, and it also is available on the iPad and in paperback. And we're working on the second one. Denise has written the text, so the ball's in my court for the second one, which is about the fairies in the forest. And we intend this to be an ongoing series of books. And so eventually there'll be a whole library, a whole catalog of books for children dealing with sacred and mystical, there's Sophia, topics. So look forward to those. Those can be found on the website The Mystic's Heart or DeniseIwaniw.com.
David, what was it like for you in creating this book? Here's yours truly, David's rendition of Moi. This is actually taken from a photo of me out on the reservation on Pine Ridge. This is from Angels All Around Us. And Sophia plays a pivotal part in all of the children's books, and there will be other children who are introduced into the series. But what was it like for you as the artist to take your almost 3-year-old Sophia and bring her forward into an older age. As a dad, how was that for you, David?
Well, it's been a joy to watch Sophia grow up. And it was artistically a challenge to make her a 7-year-old using the semblance of a 2.5-year-old. So I had to study people's faces, and I had to study pictures of people that from age 2 to 7. There's a lot of time-lapse videos online where parents take a picture every month or maybe every day or every year of their children, and then they morph in 30 seconds from baby to a teenager. And so I studied that and realized the differences in a person's face from a toddler to a young kid. And so part of that, a lot of it has to do with the nose and the mouth. And so the mouth becomes a little bit wider and the nose becomes a little bit longer. So the middle part of the face is what gets extended. And so I had to experiment quite a bit to find my technique for that.
What was it like to see your little girl go from a toddler to an elementary school age girl?
It was a little bit surreal, because I always think of her as the age she is, and then sometimes I look back, but it's intriguing and interesting to think of her older, and it conjures up, and Nicole and I, the feeling of, I just want you to stay like this.
Yes.
Because we love you now. And it reminds me of a quote, whatever you become, someone will long for who you were. And so I think maybe in a bigger perspective, people might be held back because they like where they are, and people like them where they are, whether growing up or changing careers or going through a divorce and forming new relationships. And so it's important to realize that, no matter what you become or who you become, someone will long for and wish you were the way you were before, but maybe that's not what's best for us. And so part of that is being brave and parting with the past and forging forward to find your true new self and rebalancing.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. There's so much to David Fix that people really, I don't believe, know about. And part of the reason that I wanted to do this show is that not only is he a high school teacher, he teaches, and the kids love him. His students absolutely adore him. I hear firsthand how much they adore him. But he is an author. He is an artist. He is a visionary. He's a visionary. He's an alchemist. And it never ceases to amaze me, David, how you can bring a concept, perhaps it's a thought bubble in my mind, and bring it through the matrix of your creative mind. It never ceases to amaze me, the alchemy that you are able to really produce. I mean, you are the one that takes the philosopher's stone and makes it into gold.
Well, thank you for that. And, we're all servants. I think we're all called to be servants. I think true happiness is serving other people. I think Thomas Jefferson said that happiness is using your talents to help other people. And I think that's true. I think people that are selfish or are in a phase of selfishness are miserable. And the people that are the most fulfilled are people that are not doing things that they think everyone needs, but doing what they want to do to serve other people. So I tell my students, a joyful truck driver makes the world a better place than a disgruntled missionary. So it's not our job to be a doctor or a missionary or some noble profession. Our job is to do what we love to do for the service of others. And so when I create art, I went through several years of creating art that wasn't that great and wasn't my talent with music. I have some talent, and videos. I have some talent, but it wasn't until I dialed into creating art like this that I realized that that's how I can serve people. And so when I take the concept, I try to imagine the audience and how they would like to consume it. And so from that perspective, it becomes obvious that, okay, this doesn't belong, or this isn't good, or this needs to be improved, or that is good. And so that becomes my guide. Like how will it be received by the audience? And I begin a lot of creative projects, and anyone can use this technique, is I write a critic's review. So for example, for Fairies in the Forest, our next book, I might write a review by a New York Times book critic, and I write a glowing review. Or I might do it from the perspective of a child or a mother, and I write a glowing, like, Amazon review. And then I do that before I begin. And that becomes my subconscious template that guides me consciously and subconsciously throughout the whole process.
Brilliant. Exquisite. Absolutely. And I forgot, to add to the list of all of his gifts and talents, philosopher, because his philosophy is ever expanding, and it's extraordinary. If you visit David at his home company, hearthproductions.com, you will see a portfolio of his work at Sun, Moon, Daughter, at The Mystic's Heart, and also a magnificent piece that he created for Art Prize. And I'm just going to leave that there because it is an award-winning, exquisite piece of art that is art within art. And for those of you that love the art of the Mystic's Heart, the Mystic's Angels, the Mysteries of Ancient Egypt, the Totem Deck, all of them, and now, of course, the Spirit of Mythology, all of the art that he created to go with the teachings, this piece that was entered into Art Prize, what year was that, David?
I believe that was 2013.
It's extraordinary. And so it's kind of, you get to have a treasure hunt today, hearthproductions.com, to take a look at that piece. I got to see it up close and personal recently here in the Enchanted Forest at the school. We had a beautiful event for David to celebrate his work and had a great deal of fun. But check it out, hearthproductions.com, to see the full scope and breadth of what is currently there. And David, you're always creating, are you not?
I have to. It's like John Lennon said, it's like demons that I have to exercise. And so when you feel the urge to create, you have to get it out. And so that's the joy. And with that flag unfolded, the whole idea behind it was that during military funerals, they fold up the flag and they hand it to the widow or the family member. And so the concept is unfolding that flag as a rebirth. And so you can see the lines in the piece that would be the creases of the flag unfolded, symbolizing a rebirth of our country or of a person. And so it operates on different levels.
I think it's safe to say that all of your artwork and your writing operates on many, many levels, and those with eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart to understand can go very, very deep, or, enjoy the surface. But you can read the book over and again and find deeper meaning to it. And one thing I'd like to say about Sun, Moon, Daughter is that it's not only for young children. This is a book that will help anyone, including adults who were children of divorce. The inner child of any person that has gone through divorce will appreciate, and I believe find deep healing in the book Sun, Moon, Daughter, because it speaks to that age that you were at the moment that the divorce happened. At any age. Sometimes, we're adults and our elderly parents become divorced. There are lots of ways that happens, but it's the inner child always that wants to reach out and have mom and dad back.
Mm-hmm.
What would you add to that, David, as we're wrapping up the hour?
Well, I think, as Dr. Hamming would say, divorce barely makes sense to the adults involved, let alone the children. And so as an adult, this book can help you reach out to your children and put things in perspective, because no one experiencing a divorce is an expert on divorce. Usually it's the first time, or even it's the second time. It's not something that you do every day. And so you're not often good at it. So how are you expected to be as an adult? How are you, you can't be expected to be an expert at going through a divorce and taking care of your children. And that's what this tool can help you do.
Yes, in a good and sacred way, in a
Yes.
spiritual way that honors not only the earthly changes that happen on the physical plane, but it also helps the healing of the soul changes, of the spiritual, mental, emotional changes that happen, and bringing those all back into balance. And I like that. And unfolding, moving forward, having good relationship with mom and dad and both sides of the family and all of the friends, and becoming healthy in that way. So David, we're at the top of the hour, as they say. It's been marvelous to have you here this morning to express, and people get a deeper appreciation, I believe, seeing your face, talking about this book it's in my library, and I do gift it to people that come to see me for counseling or spiritual direction that I feel will be healed or find insight into going through divorce in a good and sacred way. David, last few words for all of your fans and friends.
Thanks for all your support. And, everything that I do would not be worth it or conceivable without the audience. And so I appreciate it. And I appreciate our relationship, Denise, and all the awakenings that you've given me.
We have a great relationship as friends, as business partners, as Sophia's auntie. I love that part. And David, thank you for blessing the world with all that you do and the light that you shine here. And everyone, continue to shine your light. The world needs it as only you can shine it. Blessings be, everyone. Merry Christmas, David. Merry Christmas, everyone.